here we go again. World of Warcraft, the MMORPG phenomenon that has been captivating our hearts and invalidating our social lives since 2004. I first set foot on the land of Azeroth around the release of the Wrath of the Lich King expansion in 2008. Clearly, silly little 12-year-old me had absolutely no idea what he was signing up for. If someone were to tell me back then that I would still be playing this game 16 years later, I would have been like, no way, I'll be a responsible adult by then. I won't have time for games. Oh, you poor unfortunate fool. Right off the bat, I was hooked. I was completely blown away by it. The size of the world, the leveling journey, the large numbers of people playing, and the sheer amount of things to do. Just everything. For quite a few years, I was rather obsessed with WoW and playing it consistently. It wasn't until the content drought of late Cataclysm that I finally got burned out and quit for an extended period of time. I still get a bit nauseous when I think of the Dragon Soul raid. Ugh. Since then, I have mostly been playing on and off. I would be there for a patch or two, quit during another, then return for the new expansion, rinse and repeat. Every time I let the game go, I would think, this is it. I'm quitting. For good this time. I'm not coming back later. For realsies. Only to predictably come crawling right back. For better or for worse, I have seen and been through many versions of the game over the years. But one thing that I have not done thus far is properly experience the game in its OG form, the classic or vanilla version of WoW. And yes, I am well aware that the classic version of the game has been out since 2019, and I have made various attempts to play that. And Wrath Classic, and Classic Hardcore, and Season of Discovery. But every time I've found myself unable to commit. Why? I don't know. I genuinely have no idea what goes on in my head sometimes. I mean, guys, I didn't commit to Classic, but then decided to play Shadowlands instead, so yeah. Recently, however, I have been getting the urge to try one more time. I didn't feel like going on the Classic Era servers though, as I worry they must have run their course by now and would be too dead. So I told myself, if Blizzard decided for whatever reason to release fresh Classic servers, I would finally commit. I would go on this journey. I would see it through. And I would share it with all of you. Sure, it would mean sacrificing a ridiculous chunk of my ever-diminishing free time, but hey, what are the odds of that happening anytime soon anyways? Now, this brilliant line of thought crossed my mind around early November 2024. Fast forward a few weeks later and... Blizzard announced fresh Classic servers for the 20th anniversary. Shit. Well, there's no time like the present. If there ever was a sign that the universe wants me to continue selling my soul to this accursed game, it's this alright. I don't know if there were any hints that Classic Anniversary was gonna happen, but I had no idea. And sure, it's not a perfect recreation of Vanilla or the 2019 release, but it's honestly good enough for me. I'm not particularly bothered by any of the changes being made, and I don't know when I would be getting another chance at this, so it was time to make preparations. First, a realm and a character. I didn't think hardcore would be the way to go for me here, so that option was out. I just wanted some leniency to mess around and have fun and not regret my poor decision-making skills. So the choice was between PvE and PvP. Having never played on an active PvP server much beyond the starter levels and not being much of a PvP player in general, I opted to go for the sensible choice. By which I mean I embraced my inner masochist and went for the PvP server, to get a taste of the true classic World PvP faction wars. I can already hear my future self screaming about this from the light-forsaken depths of Stranglethorn Vale. As for a character, I settled on a Warlock. Why, you may ask? I just think they're cool. Fell magic, summoning demons, decent utility, being complete frauds by having the option to train a spell to summon a mount instead of buying one like the rest of the normies. That one is enough to convince me, to be honest. I fully expect to be completely broke about this whole thing. I may never compete with those GigaChat mages, but at least I'll have a cool fiery horse to cry on. And yeah, I hear you. I could have also chosen Paladin for that exact same reason, but honestly, I find their classic incarnation, rather dull. Sorry, classic Paladin lovers. Also, my main on retail, almost since I've started playing the game, has been a Retribution Paladin. So you can imagine the state of my brain rot by now. It's probably good for my sanity to play something different. The next thing on the list was to decide what faction and race my character should be. On the Alliance side we have
more work
and
Why you're a tall one.
On the Horde side we have
Something you're doing
and
Tazdingo.
Yes!
and
Trust no one.
Hey guys, editor's note here. So, as you might have noticed, I completely forgot that trolls cannot be warlocks in Classic and can be mages instead. I swear it was the other way around, but here we are. I only realized after recording the entire script, so yeah, I can all just marvel at my own incompetence. Anyways, back to the video. Now, I honestly do like both factions a lot. I was tempted to pick Undead purely for the edge factor, but that gosh darn nostalgia compels me to play Alliance. Anyways, I don't feel like going for a bland old human, so gnome it is. A lot of people seem to hate gnomes and I can sort of understand that, but I personally don't mind them all that much. As long as they're not imitating a tortured, lopsided locomotive. We shall be a good, well-behaved gnome. We will never do /train. Finally, the last thing our happy little gnome warlock needed was a name. I settled on Arbe. You see, it's because I've been using Black Hat as a username since I was a teen, but there's a million other edgelords out there who use some variation of it, so as of late I've added an R in front of it whenever I sign up somewhere new, and if you take the first two letters you get RB and RB. I'll show myself out. And with that unnecessarily long backstory out of the way, we can fast forward to the moment Classic Anniversary released. So I was really keen to play for a bit right when the servers opened, mainly because I wanted to see how chaotic it would be. It's just a few minutes after release time and I attempt to log in. Yeah, that's already looking promising. There isn't a queue or anything, which surprises me, but the game is stuck trying to connect, which cannot be a good sign. After retrying a couple of times, I decide to just leave it be for as long as it needs, and what do you know, a few minutes later I'm in. I quickly rush to make my character as I'm worried the server might decide to kick me out at any point. A few precise clicks later we end up with this charming fellow. Oh, truly the epitome of gnome kind. I don't know why, but I always pick this facial hairstyle for gnomes. It just fits in my head. I then proceed to give him his name, praying nobody else has been dumb enough to think of the same silly little name I have. Luckily enough, we are good to go. With that, it is finally time to jump in and start our adventure in Classic WoW, 20 years late. Oh man, I am so excited for this. As I set foot in Coldridge Valley, I am immediately in for a treat. Characters running in place? Check. Solid rubber banding? Check. Several seconds delay until actions are processed? Check. Indeed, the server is certified struggling. I admittedly don't know how this compares to other classic releases. I imagine it's not as bad, but I'm still getting a good laugh out of it. I take a few minutes just to set up some UI and briefly mess with some add-ons that I had from previous characters, and that I can't be bothered to configure properly or remove. Like, seriously, my UI is, kinda messy, and you'll likely see stuff changing over time. If you do find that a bit jarring, I apologize in advance. As I decide I've had enough of that for the time being, I see that the starting area is now positively swarming with people. Just look at this tiny army of dwarves and gnomes. Bloody hell, like half of them are freaking mages. Now, for a while I just kind of accept that I have no chance of questing in this mess. These people are ravenous. The first quest is to gather 8 pieces of meat from some wolves, and every single wolf spawn point is camped by a solid group of people. Like, honestly, I think I spend the next 20 minutes or so just wandering around and marveling at the chaos. They just keep on coming. Look at them go! I am honestly considering just logging out and maybe coming back when things are a bit more calm, but as I see the server is starting to stabilize a bit, I decide to try my luck and at least get the first quest done. So I pick a spawn point and start camping. And since there is no such luxury as shared kill credit in these olden days, we have to join in the degeneracy of trying to tag the enemies as soon as they respawn before anybody else can. First come, first served. So the starter Warlock toolkit looks a bit like this. A damaging spell with a cast time in Shadow Bolt, a survivability buff in Demon Skin, and a plain auto attack. Trying to cast Shadow Bolt is absolutely useless at this point, as everything here dies before I can even whisper the S. So I have to rely on auto attacks to get that first hit in. I managed to beat these people at the game of desperately spamming auto attack enough times for them to invite me to a group and actually try to cooperate. With the common goal of irreversibly decimating the local wolf population, we soon make short work of the first quest. Boom! Level 2. With that done, I feel emboldened to carry on. Next on my list is making a quick trip to meet the Warlock trainer. While I like the idea of having to train spells, it's going to be a massive drain on the wallet and a constant source of anguish. Goal making has never been my forte, so I will have to try to only pick up what I really need in order to avoid running completely dry. For now, I'm able to learn the Immolate spell, which is our first dot, and as a spell with no travel time, is potentially going to be quite useful as a way to quickly tag mobs. I also pick up the quest to learn to summon our first demon, the Imp. And it's at this point I remember that there is a demon trainer who sells grimoires that are required in order to teach your demons new spells and upgrade existing ones. Yeah, Arbe might have to sell one of his kidneys to make ends meet. I then follow the example of all these other genocidal maniacs in calling the pesky trogs. I have a marginally easier time finding stuff to kill. Perhaps there are more spawn points, or the bulk of players have already moved on while I'm here taking my sweet time. Ultimately, however, camping once again proves most efficient. If there's one good thing about there being so many players, it's that everything respawns really fast. Boom! Level 3. Next on our hit list are the boars. After wandering around a bit, I once more find a comfortable little spawn point to camp. There was this other mage here that I feel like I stole a considerable amount of kills from, but he didn't seem to care. Like, half the time he was just fighting wolves instead. I'm not sure if he was just looking to grind or pass the time while the spot freed, or it was just the bot or something. I guess we will never know. Just as I am getting a bit comfortable having to deal with fewer campers in the same spot, I have to move on to a quest I was dreading in this mess. Recovering Felix's junk. Felix is this silly little airhead who managed to lose his belongings in 3 separate troll camps. Unlike anything else thus far, said belongings are not looted from enemies, but instead are interactable objects placed in the world, that only one player can interact with at a time, after which they despawn. Needless to say, these are quite contested. If you fail to start the interaction within the first few frames of the object respawning, then you might as well give up. Now, we could have been civilized people and formed a queue or something, like the humans were apparently doing. Look at that! Beautiful! But no, these are cold, harsh lands for untamed, unhinged people. It is every dwarf and every gnome for themselves, fighting bitterly over every single respawn. It takes a bunch of attempts for every item, but eventually we emerge victorious. Perhaps I would have succeeded faster if I had just made a macro, but I was really stubborn about getting them just by spamming right-click. That's the Retribution Paladin brain rot kicking in, alright. With that out of the way, I move on to dealing with the troll problem. In the Sovereign Cave at least, elsewhere it's a bit beyond salvation. I need both whelps for the kill quest and novices to get feather charms for the imp quest. It's the same procedure as usual at this point. Run into the cave, find a nice spot, start camping. Boom! Level 4. Sure enough, I'm soon done with the novices and I drop down to find a place to camp whelps. And here I get a glimpse of what awaits me for the next quest in this cave. Holy shit, that's where the boss of the cave is. Oh, there's so many of them. Yeah, we're gonna have to compete with that to kill the guy, and yeah, I can't wait. I team up with a couple of mages to promptly wrap up the whelps, and then off I go. I turn in some quests, and then it's back to the Warlock trainer to learn to summon the imp and train some more spells. Corruption, which is going to be a very nice dot once we remove its cast time, and Curse of Weakness, which... actually, I don't know how useful that's gonna be while leveling. What happens to only getting what I really needed? And just like that, I have already reached the point where I cannot afford to train everything, as I noticed that the Blood Pact Grimoire for the imp is available. But 1 silver is a bit too steep for my poor little gnome pockets. Well, I'll have to remember to pick it up later. Anyways, we can now actually summon our first demon, so let's get right to it and see what our new friend is called.
This was not in my contract!
Geltic. Pleasure to meet you, Geltic. You and I will accomplish great things together. Great things indeed. I'm honestly not the best when it comes to managing pets, but I'm gonna try my best to get better at it throughout this journey. So I'll be setting Geltic, and any future demons, to passive pretty much the entire time, meaning they shouldn't be attacking unless commanded. After doing a quick booze run for the local drunkards, it is finally time to confront the boss of the Troll Cave, some unfortunate guy called Gricknir the Cold, who has stolen some journal which we are tasked to retrieve. Now, here's a silly little story. As soon as I enter the troll cave, some trolls from beyond the cave briefly start wailing in general chat, demanding that some guy called Joel gets on Skype. I must have been living under a rock or something for the last decade, because apparently this is a meme from like 2015 and I had absolutely no idea and just took it at face value. Like, just listen to my reaction. Why are these guys talking in general chat? Why doesn't Joel just fucking go on Skype? Because probably Joel is a sensible person who doesn't want to use Skype in 2024. Imagine being Swedish. Oh my goodness. I did look it up a few days later and I was actually kind of disappointed it was just a meme. Ignorance truly is bliss. Anyways, I joined the mob of executioners and oh boy, these people are bloodthirsty savages. As soon as Gricknir respawns, he just gets deleted within a few frames. There's also this guy having a go at everyone who dares try to kill Gricknir without being in a full party. Like, he's just a tiny little can of anger ready to burst. I honestly can't decide if I love or absolutely hate that name. I do decide it would probably be for the best if I teamed up for this, otherwise I might be here a while. Boom, level 5. I don't think I even noticed I leveled up there, I was just waiting for another respawn while some random mob was killed by a party member. I even decided to stop being a pleb and actually make a macro instead of just blindly spamming auto attack. Character growth right there. So, editor's note, again. As you could probably see, I misspelled Gricknir in the macro. Everybody else is here hunting Gricknir, while I am hunting Grickneek instead, after boasting about character growth. I'm so fucking done with my own shit. We soon finally send Gricknir to the maw for the 60th time and get the journal, meaning we can finally leave the troll cave behind. As I do so, I am greeted by a beautiful sight. The primitive nutjobs of Coldridge Valley are finally attempting to leave their savage ways behind, and are starting to form orderly queues. I take a second to marvel at people actually being civil in an online game, and, with a smile on my face, I move on. I return the journal and am a bit excited since I can get a new staff as a reward. But then I'm reminded that I will have to first find the trainer to learn to use staves and other weapons. Yeah, I don't think I'll be using this staff after all. Speaking of trainers, I remembered to go pick up the Blood Pact Grimoire from the demon trainer, allowing Geltic to provide us with a stamina buff whenever he's around. With that, all loose ends here are tied up. As fun as it's been to be a part of the unstable and dysfunctional ecosystem of Coldridge Valley, it is time to say goodbye to it and move on to the wider world. As I make my way to the small town of Karanos, I take a moment to unwind from all the chaos and allow my childish brain to get giddy with excitement about exploring the world of Azeroth again. Whenever I've played retail in recent years, it's been mostly just about the endgame, quickly reaching max level and then focusing on mythic dungeons and maybe some casual raiding. Not so much exploring the world or, heavens forbid, interacting with players outside of my guild. This, however, already feels much less like a race and more like an obscenely long stroll through the park, where I can just take my time, appreciate my surroundings, mess around, stumble into some memorable encounters, and maybe even work together with those around me. One grand, nostalgia-fueled adventure. Journey before destination, my friends. I reach Karanos and turn in the couple of quests I had that sent me here. Finding ourselves in the inn, shielded from the harsh cold outside and exhausted from a hard night's work committing war crimes in the valley, it is time to hit the hay and enjoy a well-deserved rest. Or well, that is what I would like to say. In reality, I only stopped at the inn for like a minute or so before heading right out again. But this video is already getting far longer than I was planning for. True to the title, I really have been rambling a lot. Like seriously, I was initially thinking I was going to cover the journey all the way up to like level 10 in this part, and we're barely halfway there, and still on the first night. If you've managed to make it this far, thank you very much for watching. This is all just a bit of a passion project inspired by various other content creators out there, and an attempt to turn my latest return to WoW into something a bit more creative. I don't know how often these videos will be coming out, and the structure might change over time, as I'm still working it all out as I'm going. But I will try to keep them simple, otherwise this would turn into an even more time-consuming fiasco than it already is. That being said, if you like, tune in to the next part of Arbe's adventure, available soon TM, and featuring questionable life choices, undocumented immigration, and maximum questing inefficiency. Until then guys, thank you once again. Have a good one.
Daylight's burning.